Hello everybody and welcome into Multiverse Videos Tech Tuesdays. This week it's episode 2 of Is It Still Useful? Today we're going to be examining an early 2008 MacBook. It's this one to be exact. Remember these? A lot of schools actually use these, the old white MacBooks, and we're going to see if this old 2008 MacBook, see if it's just as useful as it was back in 2008 in 2016. Do you guys think it's going to be useful? Let's find out.
So first things first, I looked on my laptop shelf to find the correct laptop we're looking for. Ah, there it is. So this machine is an early 2008 MacBook. The specs on this machine are as follows. It has a 2.1 GHz Intel Core 2 Duo with 2 GB of RAM, a 120 gig hard disk with an Intel GMA graphics chip running macOS 10 Lion.
Okay, so what I thought I'd do is I'd go ahead and do nearly the exact same thing I did with the old first generation MacBook Pro and see if this 2008 MacBook is still as useful as it is in the modern world. Let's get started.
I connected my Apple Magic Mouse with the built-in Bluetooth on the MacBook and it worked perfectly. First up, we're going to be testing Safari 616, released on August 13th, 2014. As you can see, the Apple homepage loads and renders just fine. And even Facebook loads and renders just fine as well. The National Weather Service website seems to load and render just fine as well. Next, we're going to be testing Google Chrome 49. This was released in April 7th of 2016. And as you can see, the Apple homepage loads and renders perfectly. And as you can see, Facebook even works just fine as well. Because Chrome is the browser that I use on this computer, I decided to try Blackboard, a website through my college. And as soon as I log in, you'll see that Blackboard works just fine. Next thing, I thought I'd try video from a local news station, and you see it plays perfectly, even at full screen.
Here, there are a number of spots where you may look outside and at least see some light rain coming down Tonawanda up to North Tonawanda, and then the showers come.
Next, we're going to test Firefox 46.0.1, released on May 3rd of 2016. This is the most up-to-date browser of all three. As you'll see here, the Apple homepage loads pretty fine. Rendering is a little bit slow, but that's okay. And Firefox worked just fine as well. Again, just a little bit slow on scrolling speed, I think, but not too bad. The latest version of iWork that can run on this machine is iWork 09, released on January 6, 2009. It isn't all that old, but just keep in mind some newer features may not be there, including iCloud support. And as you see, Keynote works just fine. If you're a fan of LibreOffice, the fork of OpenOffice, the latest version you can run is 4.3.7.2, released on April 22nd of 2015. And as you can see, LibreOffice works just fine as well, as I type out this little document for you. The latest version of Office you can run on this machine is Microsoft Office for Mac 2011, released on October 26, 2010. However, I have Office 2008 on here, basically just because I like it better. And as you can see, Office 2008 even works just fine. The latest version of iLife you can run on this machine is iLife 11, released on October 22nd of 2010. As you can see, we're opening GarageBand here. And it worked just fine, and I had a little fun in GarageBand. I even opened iMovie for a quick test. And again, iMovie launched and it seemed to work just fine. If you're a weather nerd, you may also like to know that RadarScope even runs on this machine. This is an older version, 2.1, released back December 11th, 2013. Because of my hatred of the main Twitter client, I found that TweetDeck 3.9.889, released on July 14th, 2015, actually still works. This is, believe it or not, the latest version as of the date of making this video, and it works just fine, and I installed it through the App Store. We're going to see if we can sync and charge my iPad mini. I connected the iPad into my USB hub, which is connected into the MacBook, and as you see, iTunes launches, and it asks me if I want to trust this computer, and I'm going to go ahead, and as soon as I click continue on that, my iPad shows up and it's able to sync, and as you see, it's even to charge. Next up, we're going to try a network file share. As you see on the Finder sidebar, it sees my main MacBook Pro. I'm going to go ahead and connect to it. I'm just going to enter in my credentials. And as you see, as soon as I log in, it gives me a list of volumes to mount. I'm going to click on my personal folder, and it mounts right there on the desktop. Let's see if we can play a video coming off the network from my main MacBook Pro. This is a video of Niagara Falls that I shot myself. You can see it's not smooth and it has lag in it. However, I copied that video over onto the MacBook itself and played it, and it played just fine. If your MacBook has a DVD drive, which most of them do, you can even watch DVD movies.
Okay, so final judgment time. Well, as you can see behind me, I've been editing the video for a little bit. I'm actually using my main MacBook Pro to edit this instead of on the MacBook itself, like what I did with the last episode where I did the first generation MacBook Pro. The reason I decided not to edit on it is it only has 2 gigabytes of RAM, and it really isn't that fast with 2 gigs. I should max it out to a full 6, but I might do that at some point. So I imported all the video files over onto my main 15-inch MacBook Pro, and we're editing it in Final Cut Pro. That's what I use, and so I'm editing it for a little bit, so I decided to make this wrap up. As I documented in the video, the MacBook is still, the early 2008 MacBook is still fairly useful for certain tasks. Now, that is, if you don't mind using some out-of-date software, then, you know, you should be fine in that regard. Again, the biggest problem that's affecting these machines, just like what's affecting the first generation Intel Macs, is the lack of web browser support. Again, Google just dropped support with it last month. That was in April of 2016. Mozilla dropped support with older Macs as well. You now need to be running OS 10.9 Mavericks or higher in order to have a newer web browser. So that's going to become a problem as the browser becomes more and more out of date. That's ultimately going to become a bigger issue. It's not an issue right now as of the date of making this video. It is not that big of a deal. I want to address one thing about video editing since I brought it up earlier. Final Cut Pro will not work on this machine. The new version of Final Cut Pro, which is what I'm running behind me, that's Final Cut Pro 10. Final Cut Pro 10 does not support the Intel GMA graphics that these MacBooks use. So the highest version of Final Cut Pro you can run is Final Cut Pro 7. And now some people prefer 7 over 10. So if you're one of those people, then you can run Final Cut 7. But if you want to run Final Cut Pro 10, you're pretty much out of luck. Again, I would highly recommend getting a early 2008 MacBook if you can pick one up for, you know, a good price. They're starting to, you know, the prices on these machines are starting to go down because they are not as useful as some people would like them to be. But again, you know, if you don't mind using some out-of-date software, then you'll definitely have yourself a machine that, you know, you can have if you want to get into the Macintosh environment as a traveling computer, first computer for somebody. And actually, one thing I forgot to mention in the video, and I probably should have pieced it in here, but I didn't. If you install another operating system like Windows or Linux, you can actually run the latest version of Linux or Windows on these MacBooks. I actually have that MacBook dual booted into Ubuntu. It's 14.04 Trusty Tar. It's not the latest version. I've seen a new version just recently came out, and I haven't updated that yet. But, and actually the funny thing is, if you install Linux or Windows, it's a up-to-date machine. You can install Windows 10 on these, and, you know, it'll run Windows 10 just fine. So, if you want an up-to-date machine, if you want a, I dare say, a better built PC than most PCs you can buy out there. I will now get a rash of comments for that, but that's okay. You can pick one up starting to get relatively cheaply, under $100. And if you don't mind using some out-of-date software, OS 10.7 Lion would work fine for you. I have heard of people being able to get these machines up to Mountain Lion using something called ML Post Factor. I have not tried that, but I have heard of some people being able to do it with good results. I haven't tried it yet. I might try that at some point. So I'm just going to wrap up here so I can finish editing this video. If you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from Multiverse videos, hit the subscribe button down below. Check out my main channel if you'd like, the Techies World. I will post a link to that in the description down below. Thank you for watching.